Welcome back to the Hottest Take Sports podcast presented by CIBB Sports. This is your host, John Achkar, and today with me I have a special guest, my friend Ethan Heiss.
Yeah, what up, guys? I'm Ethan. Thanks very much for having me on today, John.
Welcome, Ethan. Happy to have you. Today is our Indians special. We'll be covering the Indians, the second half, and the trade deadline. So let's get to talking, Ethan. First up, we're going to be talking about the Indians' hot streak that they've been on recently and how well they've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, so coming out of the All-Star break, they've been having a really good stretch. I mean, they've won 7 out of their last 8 games, but I've got to say I'm not entirely sold right now.
What are you not sold about?
Well, I mean, I know that they're only 3 games back on the Twins now. I think going into the All-Star break, they were 7 or 9 games back, somewhere around there. But they've been playing some pretty bad teams recently. They took a series against the Tigers. They took one against the Royals. I don't know, man. Those teams are just not that good.
I'm going to get up a schedule for you right now, and we can go over the teams that they've had. So, starting at June 1st, the Indians have actually gone 29-12, which is significantly better than Twins, who have been 22-20. And that's what has brought us from 11 games back to only 4 games back now. But through that time, starting June 1st, we have played the White Sox, the Twins, the Yankees, the Reds, the Tigers, the Rangers, the Royals, Baltimore, which we actually dropped 2-2, which was one of the worst series of the year. Yeah, 13-0 twice.
13-0.
More Kansas City, more Cincinnati, and a lot of Kansas City and Detroit. So I can agree with you when you say that we haven't played the best teams. But when we did play the best teams during that stretch, we did beat them.
I mean, what are the best teams from that stretch? I mean, you mentioned the Twins, and recently we lost that series against the Twins. We lost 2 of those 3 games.
We did lose 2 of the 3 games, but starting off in June, we did take 2 of 3 from them. We took 2 of 3 from the Yankees. We took 2 of 4 from the Rangers, who are also in wildcard contention. The Reds aren't in contention, but with their division, they are kind of in contention.
A little bit, but those last 5 series have been Royals, who are, I think, 24 games back in the division. We played the Reds, who are not a serious contender in the NL. The Twins, who are ahead of us. And then, the Tigers are, I think, 28 games back. And then we played the Royals again. So there are definitely some bright spots for the Indians, though. I'll give them that. It's good to win 7 games regardless of who you're playing.
All right, so all that is true, but wins are wins, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course.
It totally counts, especially with us vying for wild card position or even first place in the division. But to go off of that also, the Indians have probably the hardest August schedule of any MLB team, facing the Astros, the Angels, the Rangers, the Twins, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Mets, all in 22 days.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of those games are on the road, so 4-game series in Minnesota, that'll be really crucial to see how things shake up in our division.
Of course.
And then that Boston series immediately after we come back home, but Boston's a team that's significantly better on the road this year than they are at home.
They're also improving now.
Yeah, I mean, that Boston team can hit. There's no doubt about it.
And then you travel to New York for 4 straight games versus the Yankees, and then 3 straight games versus the Mets.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation for us. But that being said, Boston also has a really rough August, and I think they're our main contender in the wildcard race. I think they play New York twice, they play Tampa twice, and they play some other contenders like us. So
so right now our biggest contender in the wild card race is the Rays, who are actually ahead of the Red Sox in the division. But you could say the Red Sox are because they're just as close.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox are 3 games back in the race. It's 1 or 3, but I still think they're a really solid team that we should be afraid of a little bit. They can do some damage.
All right, I agree. So out of those 22 days, we play, I think, 21 days. So that would be 21 games, obviously. How many of those, if we win, do you think would be a success?
If you come out of that 500, I think you are very, very happy.
So an 11-10. I mean, that's not 500.
10 and 11.
10 and 11.
11, 10. Yeah, sure. Because like looking at the full schedule here,
it's rough, dude.
No, but it eases up after that. I know the end of August you have Tampa, but then September you're cruising. You have a series against the Twins, but then you play the Angels, who are probably gonna slow down. They're in the race right now. You play the Twins again, but then you got Detroit, and you have Chicago twice in September. Chicago White Sox, I should specify, who are another team that's not very good in the AL Central.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I disagree because I think September is also a very important stretch for our schedule. We play Minnesota twice. We play Philadelphia, who will be fighting for a spot in the playoffs, and then we play Washington, who will also be fighting for a spot in the playoffs.
I'm not saying it's not important, and I think there's a lot of time to see where the NL plays out because Philly and Washington, I don't think will both be fighting for a wild card spot because they're in the same division.
Exactly.
I think that would be like a tough scenario, but we picked up the wins in July that we needed to this past week and a half. And if we can get through August, like with our young pitchers carrying us along and maybe the bats continuing to stay hot, I think September is looking good for us, and that'll be a bright spot.
I would agree. It could go really well. We just gotta try to make it through August and salvage what we can get with those wins.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's really gonna be it.
Another stat for the Indians: we've been winning 13 of our past 16 games, and a large part of that has been our young pitching, including Shane Bieber and Zach Plesac.
Yeah, I mean, so Shane Bieber, phenomenal year right now. He was All-Star Game MVP. Not that that really matters, but
it's still awesome.
Yeah, it's still pretty cool, and he's establishing himself nicely. Like he's coming along, second year in the bigs, and he had a terrific June. His ERA in June was like low 3, like 3.09, I want to say. And he's been...
Let's see. In his past 7 games, he has a 3.06 ERA.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. Like, his most recent starts in July have been a little shaky, giving up, I think, 5 earned runs in both of them.
He won Friday night.
Yeah, he's getting the wins. That's the thing, which can be, like, a little misleading. But
because
I still
wins aren't everything for a pitcher in the MLB.
No, they're not.
That.
Yeah,
exactly.
Jacob deGrom, case in point. But he's still been really good, and he's going to be good for a long time, I think.
Yeah, exactly. In 124.1 innings, he has 156 strikeouts. He has a 1.05 WHIP and a 3.69 ERA. So he has picked up a large part of the rotation that Kluber, Carrasco, Clevenger partly left behind.
Yeah, but Clevenger's back now. He's balling. He's doing really picking up right where he left off. No surprise there.
But Bieber really has picked up a large part of this rotation and carried us on his back.
Yeah, and
we
I
really
mean,
needed it.
I think it's important we don't forget about Trevor Bauer.
Yeah,
I know. I know we're gonna talk about Bauer a lot later, so I'll save some of that. But he's having a good year. It's not the same year he had last year, and it's not as amazing, but he leads the league in innings pitched, and he's a known commodity. He's doing what he does.
Talking about this earlier this year. Trevor Bauer had such a good year last year that him having an above average this year makes it seem like a bad season.
Yeah, it's tough to follow up.
He's having a really good season. He has a 3.67 ERA with over 170 strikeouts.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It's crazy that with those numbers, I think you can make a legitimate case that he's the 3 in the rotation right now.
Who would you say are 1 and 2?
Clevenger and Bieber with the current rotation right now, because I think Clevenger is, like, the numbers would say Clevenger is better than Bauer.
Yeah, and Clevenger had a little bit of a rocky start coming back off the DL. Had that huge stint for 2 months.
IL.
Thank you. The IL. 2 months on the IL, comes back 1 game, strains his ankle, and then goes back on for another week or 2. So, but he's really getting back into it and coming back to his own, like the Clevenger that we saw at the beginning of the season with his 2 fantastic starts.
Yeah.
But another pitcher that has also carried a lot of weight on the Indians' rotation is Zach Plesac.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Plesac's an interesting case. Young guy. We called him up. I think he started pitching for us in June.
Yeah.
And it's weird to see how he's progressed because in June we really gave him the ropes. He was pitching like 5-7 inning games, and like a lot of those games were really good, only giving up like 1 earned run.
Yeah,
I think he had one where he gave up 4 or 5, but that's not bad for someone this young.
His MLB debut was versus the Red Sox in that rainy game. He pitched an amazing game, and even David Price acknowledged him at the end of the game. He signed something for him and said, like, great job, like, you have a good future ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, but his role lately has kind of transitioned where he's just, seems like he's going through the order once, and then they're giving it to the bullpen for the rest of the game, because I think his last 3 games, he's only pitched 3 or 2 innings during the game.
Plesac?
Yeah.
He pitched 6 innings today, had 6 strikeouts, and 2 earned. But before that, he pitched 3 innings and 2.2 innings.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. Because neither of those games were bad performances. When you go 3 innings, 0 earned, and then 2.2, 2 earned, that's not bad either. I don't know if I wasn't...
He's had some command issues.
Command issues?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why they gave it over to the bullpen for those games?
And today he had over 24 pitches in the first inning too, so...
Okay.
It's
so it's a pitch
reoccurring
count.
theme, yeah.
It's a pitch count thing. Yeah, but I mean, if he did give up 6 and 2, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's right up there with those 7 inning back-to-back 1 earned runs in June 18th, June 23rd.
Yeah, exactly. And in 10-game start, he has a 3.5 ERA. But the thing you got to think about is he started off the season in Double-A this year with the Rubber Ducks. He's come a long way, man, from facing Double-A talent to Major League talent.
Yeah, I mean, big transition there. I wish we could get his Double-A partner, Tristan McKenzie, on the roster too, but I know he's battled some injuries.
He hasn't even pitched this year in the minors leagues.
Yeah.
But another thing is Plesac started in Double-A this year. Bieber started in Double-A last year.
So if you get those two on the same track, if you have Plesac progress how Bieber is, that would be a really nice thing. And if there's one thing the Indians have done very consistently over the past, 7 years, it's developed starting pitching. Look at guys like Kluber, Carrasco. Scott Kazmir was very good for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And we kind of were the jolt for him.
Yeah, well, he was in an independent league after a stint in the MLB, and then we got him back on track. Clevenger, Kluber, Carrasco, Bieber, Bauer. Bauer's having some trouble in Arizona, and then we traded for him, and
Bauer was almost out of the league just because he was such a pain to work with.
And we'll talk more about that. Yeah, but also, last thing with Bieber and Plesac, they were both drafted in 2016 out of college, so props to the Indians for drafting starting pitching and knowing what they're doing. Also, another member of that draft class was Aaron Civale, who pitched 1 game for the Indians.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Civale came up for 1 game this year, and he frickin' dazzled. 6 innings pitched, 2 hits allowed, 3 base on balls, 6 strikeouts. That's a terrific performance, and he has been a stud in Double-A and Triple-A this year with a combined ERA of 2.04 across all 3 divisions.
That's another pitcher who started in Double-A this year. Yeah, so basically Civale was a 3rd-round draft pick in 2016. Bieber was a 4th-round draft pick in 2016. And Plesac was a 12th-round draft pick in 16. So, like I said before, props to the Indians for drafting that year. They really outdid themselves starting pitching.
Yeah, my God, all these kids can ball. Plesac is having a good year in the MLB. Shane Bieber is really coming into his own, and I hope Civale will be up there consistently next year. I mean, he's undefeated. Wins and losses aren't everything, as we mentioned before, but he is 8-0 if you look at the bigs, Double-A and Triple-A this year. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's one side of the ball on baseball. Let's talk about hitting. A big part of the Indians' hot streak has been Jose Ramirez, who has hit .345 over his past 7 games, .317 over his past 15 games, and .297 over his past 30 games, with over 6 home runs.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you look a little deeper at that, in the last 7, the man is slugging .690.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. If you add the OBP and slugging, it is top 4 in the league over those last 7 games easily. .345 plus .690. Let's do some quick maths right here.
Quick maths. Big shock.
That's 1330. I think so. I think it's...
We'll go with it, yeah. Yeah, but another big part was that he had that go-ahead home run today.
It's 1030. 1030.
10:30,
But yeah,
awesome.
that's not that important. Go ahead. Go ahead home run.
Yeah, he had the go-ahead home run today, put the Indians on top, ended up winning 5-4 because Simber and Hand both let up a run each. But that doesn't matter because we won. But Jose Ramirez has been a huge part in this turnaround. He was staying the whole season around 195 and has finally gotten his batting average up to 232, which really does not seem good, but it's good for Jose Ramirez standards right now.
Yeah, this year that is very good for Jose Ramirez standards. One thing that I think he's struggling with at the plate right now is discipline, because he's been hitting the ball well recently, but if you look at his OBP numbers, he's not taking a lot of walks.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part, but there's like two sides to that. So his walks are down, but I would say his discipline has gotten a lot better because he's not trying to pull everything now. At the beginning of the season, the big part of him not hitting was him just trying to pull everything. That's why you saw a lot of weak ground balls and just not well hit balls. But now he's becoming a lot more disciplined at the plate.
Becoming the complete hitter.
Yeah, becoming a complete hitter. And walks will come with that.
Yeah, and the power is coming with that too. Another thing I think is interesting that I want to point out with Jose Ramirez is that he's actually one of the unluckiest players in baseball.
All right, I like this.
So if you look at, there's a statistic, it's called batting average balls in play, where it essentially says on your balls in play that are within the playing field, like what are the odds that it will get caught. They take averages of where the fielders stand, how fast the players are, and where you hit the ball. They use all of those to consider how likely it is to be an out. And the average for the league is roughly 300. And Jose Ramirez's average as a career is 286, which is well below his regular batting average. And that's a stat that should be significantly above it.
Yeah.
And this year, his BABIP is 236, which is just horrendous by his standards. So I think that does just... it comes to confirm that he's having a bad year, but it also shows that he's just super duper unlucky.
I mean, that's something that can just totally boost his confidence too if he wasn't so unlucky. You know, that's something that could totally get him together. But
oh yeah, and I think we're starting to see that right now, that the balls are going to drop.
Like, everything was working against him at the beginning, but now it's starting to all come together.
Yeah, I mean, law of large numbers, you can only be unlucky for so long before something trends towards its real average.
Exactly. And talking about hitters that are warming up on the Indians, a big person that I think is not getting that much love is Tyler Naquin.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big Tyler Naquin guy.
I think Tyler Naquin is having a phenomenal season that's just like super under the radar. He's hitting 287 in 195 at-bats. So it's not that big of a sample size.
That's big enough. That's like
getting,
2/3 of the at-bats.
I think 200 is like the perfect sample size. And he's getting there. He has 9 home runs, 30 RBIs. But I think the biggest thing is that he's hitting 287 because not a lot of Indians right now can hit.
Yeah, the Indians struggle with hitting. I think we have like 5 guys maybe who hit above 270.
Yeah, something like that. Mercado, Santana, Lindor, Naquin. And I think Luplow is hitting 270. Yeah, but Naquin, I mean, he needs more love. Like, they're starting to play him every day in right field,
which they should be.
That's deserving.
Yeah,
exactly.
And he's made some spectacular plays on defense too recently. Diving catch the other day.
Exactly. He had a great game last Friday. But we'll talk about this later. This could also play into the Indians' deadline plans.
I really hope not.
It could with an outfielder stepping up.
Oh, from that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, from that perspective, yes.
Maybe not spending on an outfielder, but spending on an infielder.
Yeah, I mean, if you want an outfield of Luplow, Mercado, Naquin, that's not bad right now. The sample size is a little small.
Just the thing with Luplow and Naquin, they like to bat Naquin against righties.
Platoon system.
Yeah, and Luplow against lefties. But then another thing is Naquin has proved that he can also hit off of lefties this year.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see. Maybe once Zimmer comes back, I think he's supposed to be coming back pretty soon. I mean, I don't expect him to be ready right away, and maybe not a solid contributor immediately or this year even. But I don't think going forward for the future,
think Zimmer has any room on the Indians roster this year. To be honest with you.
Well, maybe not this year, but I think for the future, yeah, because when he's been healthy, which hasn't been a ton, he's been pretty good
in the field, but not really hitting.
I think
You think he's
like
been fine hitting?
he's like a 250, 260 hitter. I think
But
that's fine.
that's
for
the thing
an
that
Indians outfielder.
that's what the Indians are looking for kind of in this trade deadline, a player that could hit over 270 consistently in the outfield, not a 250 hitter. But let's talk about the Minnesota Twins, Ethan.
Yes.
They're our biggest competitor right now, obviously. We are officially 3 games back, and the Twins haven't been so hot lately.
No, they've been pretty cold.
Yeah,
They've
in
been
their
cooling
last
off.
10, they're 4-6. The Indians are 7-3.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we were able to gain so many games so fast. But I think it would be a little foolish of us to just say that the Twins are
Done.
yeah, out of the picture, because when you look at the ESPN strength of schedules, the Twins have the second easiest schedule in the league, and we're third easiest. But we already took a look at our August, and it's pretty tough. The Twins don't really have that same murderer's row that we have to go through in August.
Yeah, and the Twins do have a couple key players on the DL right now, including Byron Buxton and La Tortuga.
Williams Astudillo.
He's got wheels, man.
Wheels for days.
Yeah, Yeah, but a lot of their players really have been cooling down. One of the players that has been staying consistent for them is Max Kepler. He's had a fantastic season, and I think he was really a snub for the All-Star game. But someone who has been cooling off, who was a big part of the first half.
Jorge Polanco,
yeah. He's hitting 233 in his last 7 games. And in his last 30, he's hitting 243. So that's been a big part of their recent struggles because he was hitting 340.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not informed on Buxton and Williams' injuries enough to tell you. Are they going to be back this year?
They'll be back, yeah.
Okay, so they'll get those bats back, and right when we're going through that tough stretch, like Minnesota, Boston, New York Mets, they're playing Chicago White Sox, Detroit Tigers, White Sox again, Tigers again. So teams that are all well below 500.
That doesn't help us, ladies and gentlemen.
It does not. And on the other side of the ball for the Twins, their starting pitching is fantastic.
You like their starting pitching?
I do. I'm a big fan of Berrios. 2.96 ERA, 1.15 WHIP. He can sling the ball, and I just think they have some other proven guys like Jake Odorizzi has been around the league for a while now, and he's really good. WAR around 2 right now, and some of those other guys like Kyle Gibson, Michael Pineda.
Yeah, Kyle Gibson has kind of had a breakout year for his own standards. He's always just been an average MLB pitcher. Now he's really kind of coming into his own.
Those are good guys to have as your 3 and your 4. I think no one would be upset if you have Michael Pineda as the 4 in your rotation, considering he was a Cy Young candidate a couple of years ago.
Or unless he had pine tar on his neck and just.
Well, he definitely did, but still, that does not take away from the fact that he's a pretty good pitcher.
All right, so
once was.
With all of this happening right now, are the Indians a wild card contender or a playoff contender?
Well,
I've worded that bad. A wild card contender, or are they going straight into the playoffs with the first place in the division?
I'll hop off the fence. I do not think we are going to take the division. I don't think that's a super hot take. I think that our August is too tough, and the Twins have a fairly easy August that we won't be able to close the gap. I know we've been on this big tear recently, but we're not playing the strongest teams, and all streaks come to an end.
The Indians are taking the division. I think they could even possibly do it by the end of July.
I mean, they can overtake them in July, but I think they'll just give it right back in August.
Yeah, and that's a big possibility, but I definitely think with how the Twins are playing right now that the Indians could take the division. The Indians will really have to prove themselves in August, but everybody knew the Twins weren't going to stay super hot. Like C.J. Cron.
C.J. Cron, dude?
Yeah,
C.J. Cron's nice.
Nobody...
Don't front.
Everybody knew that they weren't just going to stay that good. They're just not that good of players. The Indians can't only focus on the division, though, so they also have to focus on the wild card. The Indians are 1 game up in the race right now, above Oakland and Tampa Bay, but they really do have to focus on that too.
There are certainly other contenders for the wild card that are going to be threatening the Indians all year long. So you have the Athletics. They're 57-43 right now, and personally, I don't think they're the biggest threat to the Indians.
You don't think they can hang?
No, I don't think they can hang. When you go up and down that lineup, it's pretty average. They're an average middle of the pack hitting team, and the same goes for pitching. I don't think they have anyone who's hitting above 300, and I know that's not an end all be all, but I think that's not a good thing to have someone you can depend on day in and day out.
The one thing I have to say about the A's is if they have the number 1 wild card spot and the Indians have 2, and we have to play at the Coliseum, I have like zero hope for the Indians. The Indians have statistically hit the worst at Oakland versus any MLB team ever.
Really?
Yeah. They cannot hit in the Coliseum. It's just
That's interesting. I did not know that. Learn something new every day. But yeah, I'm gonna write the Athletics off, despite them hanging with us right now and all year long.
What about Tampa Bay, who's one?
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay is gonna be fighting for the other wild card spot because they have very comparable pitching to us. They have good pitchers. Like Blake Snell obviously is not following up his campaign, but he's still a good guy.
What about the emergence of Tyler Glasnow?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Tyler Glasnow struggled in Pittsburgh. The Pirates got ripped off.
Oh, that was the worst trade in MLB history.
Arguably, yeah. I mean, Glasnow is fantastic. Has one of the highest Ks per 9.
Austin Meadows.
MLB. I'll get to Austin Meadows in a second, but yeah, Glasnow's ERA is under 2. They also have some like other good hitters like Tommy Pham. Austin Meadows is having a fantastic year, and Cleveland's finest, Yandy Diaz, has been pretty good. Good for Yandy, dude. Yeah, good for Yandy.
I talked to Yandy earlier this year, and I asked him how much protein he has after he works out, and he goes,
all of it.
No, he said he doesn't use protein. So
I don't believe that.
Yeah, he was joking, but it's still funny.
Yeah, Tampa doesn't have a tough schedule. On the flip side, Boston is a really good team that can't pitch, but they have a sleeper MVP candidate in Rafael Devers.
Yeah, you love Devers.
I do love Devers. I went on the record early this year saying he'd have a sleeper MVP year, and sure enough, he's hitting like 323 with
you
370
really
OBP.
You called Devers, I called Giolito. 2 big picks.
Yeah, and they're both hanging in there.
They are.
But they have a super tough schedule. They play the Yankees a bunch more. They play them twice in July or August, and they play Tampa twice in July or August. So, yeah, that's just not looking good.
With all of this comes big decisions, especially with record, and that brings up trade deadline talk. The Indians are in a particularly rough position because they are 3 games back, but they are first in the wild card. They also are in a rough position because they're really thinking about rebuilding. The Indians are spending a lot of money right now that they don't want to be spending, and they really think they could cut back on it. But they also want to win because Cleveland loves baseball. And with big decisions comes big players, including Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Bauer, we talked a little bit about him earlier. He's one of the top guys in our rotation. He's a free agent in 2021, so there are still...
We have 1 whole year left with him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You get the rest of this year, and then next year, he has one of the highest Ks per 9 in the league, and he leads the league in innings pitched. So there's
170 Ks and 144.2 innings pitched.
Yeah, there's a lot of trade value there. So, John, do you think we should trade Trevor Bauer?
So, I think the Indians should eventually trade Trevor Bauer. If not at this deadline, I don't think it's the biggest deal. But if they don't do it at the deadline, they have to do it over the offseason. Because to get the biggest return for him, a team's going to want a full year of ownership with him.
Yeah, I think right now is where Trevor Bauer's trade value is at its peak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of that, we should trade him. Also, because I do not think this year is the Indians' year to win the World Series.
Yeah, and you could get future pieces for him. We'll talk about that. But also, like, the other thing with Bauer is he could, like, really show out for the rest of the year. We don't know that. He could do really well or he could do really bad. But let's say he does do really well and kind of comes into his own. These last couple months, I think you could get a higher price for him in the offseason versus right now.
I don't think so, because I think there are some pretty good landing spots for him. Teams that are looking to make either a World Series push or a playoff push. So if I think we're going to trade him, I think we'll trade him out of the American League so we don't have to deal with him next year. Because I think this year, I'd like to think that the Indians owners and front office have the foresight to realize we probably can't get through the Astros or the Yankees in the playoffs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that being said, I think next year could be a very good year for us. And if we could get some good pieces back, I think Atlanta could add a fifth man because they have Soroka, Tehran, Keuchel, and Max Fried, who are all really, really good. But
and
then
young.
Yeah, and young, with the exception of Tehran and Keuchel.
Yeah, they also do have a lot of young kids pushing the surface of the MLB, like Ian Anderson.
Mm-hmm. But I think that if they could add a solid fifth man as opposed to their current two guys who are going like 6 ERA about, that would be lethal. And they have one of the best farm systems still, so we could get some good pieces.
Yeah, they really could, whether it's pitching and you want to restock with pitching or a good outfielder.
Yeah.
But why do you think we should trade him?
I think now is where you're going to get a lot for Trevor Bauer. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I don't see us making that World Series push this year. And I'm also confident in our other pitchers because I think Civale could come up and fill the role. I think Plesac has done a nice job lately, as has Bieber, and we know that Clevenger is good.
And that's just talking future, too.
Yeah,
right now, we want to fill a role. Kluber's back on the mound today.
Yeah,
Carrasco.
I was about to mention Kluber comes back. Carrasco will be back.
Health is first, obviously.
Maybe Danny Salazar eventually.
Danny Salazar said he does not want to be in the bullpen, so that's also a problem. But that's fine. I don't care. The reason I think we should trade Trevor Bauer right now is because I think he has zero interest in re-signing with us.
Yeah, that's known.
He has turmoil with the team. He has turmoil with the front office. And I think there's zero chance that we give him the money he wants after next season. And especially after he stated that we slandered him in arbitration. So I think him not wanting to be back is a big part of why we should trade him.
Yeah, I mean, he's also stated countless times, happy fingers on Twitter, that he didn't expect to be in Cleveland at the end of this year because he thinks we are going to trade him. And I think that we are. I just see no reason why we wouldn't. I think another landing spot for him would be Philadelphia because they have really bad starting pitching. Like, I know Aaron Nola, Jake Arrieta, big names, but they've been bad. They're 23rd in team batting average against, 22nd in Ks per 9, and 20th in ERA. So I think for a team that's making a wild card push, Bauer is big for them.
He would definitely help.
And they have a decent farm system.
And who knows? Maybe if Bauer goes to a different team this year, he pulls everything together. Maybe it's just a change of scenery that he needs.
It's not even like he's bad. We mentioned he pitches a lot of innings. It's just like last year he had such a good year that it's looking bad.
Yeah, exactly. So on our Twitter at Hottest Take Pod, we posted a poll of whether we should trade Bauer or keep him, and we had a lot of votes that we did not expect. Out of 188 votes, 52% of people said trade Bauer and 48% said keep. So it's really a split crowd on whether we should keep him or trade him. There's not really one single decision that everybody's coming to.
I guess that's expected with a fan base, and because all the different fans are going to want the franchise to go in different directions, but I think it makes the most sense for us to trade Bauer now.
I would agree with you. I think we have to trade Trevor Bauer. So being as big of a piece as Bauer is, we could get some pretty good young players or prospects for him. Two of the bigger teams that are in contention to trade for Bauer are the Yankees and the Brewers. So these two prospects that I've picked out are Clint Frazier and Keston Herrera. Frazier is a former Indians prospect.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and we traded him once he got to AAA for Andrew Miller. And everybody would say that's a great trade, but now Miller's gone and our outfielder's a little shaky. So
yeah, I still think that was a very good trade.
It was an awesome trade.
We got so much out of Andrew Miller, and Clint Frazier has been in and out of the MLB.
But that's not completely his fault.
No, I mean, the Yankees have a really stacked outfield, and they always will because they can spend a lot of money.
And they sent the Yankees. They sent him down to make room for the pair Edwin Encarnacion. So it wasn't really even a positional need for that. It was just a roster need. But while Clint was up with the Yankees, he was hitting .283 with 11 home runs and 34 RBIs. So he was doing pretty well. I don't think he deserved to be in the minor leagues when they sent him down. And he was pretty frustrated about it too. He isn't doing so hot in the minor leagues right now.
No, he's hitting .230.
Yeah, .227 for AAA. But,
yeah.
I mean, how much could he really be caring about that when he knows he's going to get traded?
He was good hitting in the MLB. He couldn't field, though. He was statistically the worst outfielder in baseball. And I think that's also one of the things that contributed to them bumping him down and looking for another bat.
With fielding, that's another thing with the Indians. I think they do a really good job of controlling the game with fielding. Terry is really good with defensive replacements. Like today, he put in Greg Allen for Jake Bowers.
Greg Allen.
I love Greg Allen. But yeah, he put him in at the end of the game just because Jake Bowers isn't the best outfielder.
Yes, Jake Bowers.
It's definitely something that the Indians could work with. And then the other player that the Indians have come in talks with would be Keston Herrera, the second baseman from the Brewers, if the Brewers were willing to give him up.
Yeah, I mean, we could use a second baseman because...
Sorry, Kipnis.
Yeah. We saw that thing on Twitter the other day pointing out all of Kipnis's history with the franchise, and that's all well and good, but
it was the
facts,
past.
The facts are he's not a very good player right now.
Yeah, and there was a video released earlier this year where a officer absolutely toasted Kipnis, and Kipnis was going over 100 in his super fancy car, and the officer said maybe you should try
hitting above 100 or something along those lines.
Anyways, Keston Herrera is hitting .331 this year with 9 dingers and 23 RBIs. So I think that the Indians would maybe just have to do a straight up trade of Bauer for Herrera. I don't think I'm saying his last name right, by the way. Sorry, but yeah, he's a young stud. I mean, he's doing awesome. His OPS is 1.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very good.
So, I mean, he's really showing out. He was their top prospect, and he's hitting, .517 in his last 7 games. So.
Yeah, the problem is if the Brewers aren't willing to part ways with him, their farm system is pretty depleted.
Yeah, so I think that's...
skin and bones right now.
Yeah, I think that's like, if you don't give him to us, we're not making a trade.
I think I mentioned before Philadelphia, and the person I would like to get in response is an outfielder, and we mentioned that the Indians' outfield is looking better of late. But there's a player by the name of Adam Haseley, and he was projected to be in the bigs this year. He's hitting .294 in AAA with an OBP of .377, and he's like their 8 or 9 or 10 prospect. So I think they'd maybe be willing to give him up. I mean, they have Bryce Harper on all that money.
But the Indians would definitely ask for more with that.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I'm saying if you can get a pretty good outfielder like that, maybe pull the trigger.
And he's not related to Halsey. But
no.
So on our Twitter at the Hottest Take Pod, we had people ask us questions for the trade deadline. So the first question asked by Norman Hall was over under 105 wins for the Indians.
Significantly under.
Yeah, under.
I think anyone who thinks the Indians will win 105 games or even maybe 100 games is a bona fide fool.
Yeah, they're not going to win 105. Sorry, Norman. Thank you for asking us a question, though. Next question. Think the Tribe will overtake the Twins or Wild Card this year?
Wild Card all the way. No World Series either. Sorry, Tribe fans.
Daniel, I'm going to go with overtaking the Twins, but I don't see a deep playoff run this year. And then our last question was, what do you think the Indians should do before the trade deadline? Any big-ticket players we should get rid of?
I think we should definitely get rid of Trevor Bauer,
yeah.
As we've kind of mentioned. I think someone else I wouldn't be super upset with getting rid of. I know he's had a terrific year, but our closer, Brad Hand, because I don't think the Indians are going to make that deep playoff push, I'm not sure we have a ton of use for Hand. I think there are other teams that could really use him that would be willing to part ways with some top-tier, top-of-the-bucket prospects.
Like Keston or Clint Frazier.
Yeah, or I think there are other landing spots for Hand that might be better.
Oh, Brad Hand. Yeah, we didn't even talk about Brad Hand. Brad Hand is another player that the Indians were thinking about trading, but with our winning of late, I'm very opposed to them trading him.
See, I'm not, because you mentioned it too, that we're not going to make that deep playoff push, so I don't think we need him.
We have control of Hand through 2022, though.
I understand that, but I think that you can find good relievers elsewhere.
Yeah, you definitely can, but he is not just a good reliever. He's a great reliever.
He's a great reliever, but we've seen relievers have like 2-3 good years and then fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And Hand has had a couple of good years already, and this is probably his best. So I'd say get the most out of him now. I mean, the Cardinals are in the market for a reliever because Jordan Hicks tore his UCL. They're making a playoff push.
Yeah.
I think we could get some really good players from them. There's a kid named Tommy Edman who's a second baseman shortstop, and he's hitting 305 in AAA. They called him up. He's hitting 262 in the bigs, which isn't amazing, but that's good for someone who just got called up. Maybe another year and he'll be hitting 300.
Yeah, so if we could get a prospect that could help us in the next 1 to 2 years, I mean, it wouldn't hurt that much, but I am definitely opposed to trading Brad Hand. Because you don't get a closer like that a lot of the time.
I mean, the Dodgers are in the market for a closer too. What if we got Will Smith?
Or Dustin May?
Yeah, or Tony Gonsolin. He's hurt, but their farm system is loaded.
What about an Alex Verdugo?
Oh, I would love Verdugo.
That's a great outfielder.
I don't think
you don't think they would give him up?
I don't.
I think they could pay a high price for him because they can just go out and buy whoever they want after that.
Maybe, but I think if we could get Will Smith, who's catcher, third baseman, I think he's got 55 or 60 speed as far as like the 5 prospects go, which is considered good.
Yeah,
I think you could put him
for
in the
catcher,
outfield.
Yeah, and
I think you could put him in the outfield.
That would be a lot stronger replacement than Kevin Plawecki.
Yeah, Robo's good, but
no, he wouldn't start over Robo immediately. No. But definitely.
But I think stick him in the outfield anyways.
Even though we have Eric Haas in the minor leagues.
Eric Haas, potential trade, but
with Hands, it brings up questions of should we buy or sell?
Okay, well, I think we should sell and buy almost ready prospects.
I agree with that.
Because I think, given what Paul Dolan has said about Francisco Lindor is a cornerstone of our franchise. There's no doubt about that. And Paul Dolan said, enjoy him while you have him. And that is till 2022.
Yeah,
is that when he's a free agent?
We have 2 more full years left of Lindor.
Yeah.
So make this push in the next 2 years with almost ready prospects.
Because I don't think this year's our World Series year. So if we could get some guys who we can bring in next year to fill the holes and the outfield, second base, fill in the back end of the rotation, that's when the Indians could finally get that World Series.
Yeah, especially with dominant teams like the Yankees right now and the Dodgers.
Yeah. It's tough to compete unless your lineup is just as stacked as theirs.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we got a little off topic with the questions there, so let's get back on them. From ASims02, who is ending with a better record and why, Red Sox or the Indians? I'm saying the Indians.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Indians too.
I don't see the Red Sox pulling it all together and making a big push.
No, if you asked me a week ago, I'd say the Red Sox would make the playoffs over the Tribe, but the Tribe are looking
a lot better.
They're looking strong, and I just continued to see them going along that trend and hanging in there. Yeah, I just don't think the Sox are gonna have it. They have such a tough schedule and such a tough division.
Yeah, especially with Tampa Bay and the Yankees. Yeah, sorry, Aaron.
Sims.
And then, does a loss to a rival hurt more than a loss to a scrub for the Indians? Example, Twins versus like a scrub such as Baltimore.
If you think about it in terms of just like standings, yes, because a loss to the Twins means you're a whole game back as opposed to a half game back for like Baltimore. But
when you lose 13-0 2 times in a row versus Baltimore, that also hurts.
That's just demoralizing.
Yeah,
That's just pathetic.
Yeah, those weren't our best 2 games, but we've really bounced back from that.
Last night took an L. Tonight I bounced back. Big Sean.
Thank you, Big Sean. All right, so I think that's going to end it with our Tribe talk for today. But let's get on to our quick news for the podcast. First of all, training camp is starting this Thursday for the Browns, the 25th. It's going to be an exciting season. Jack and I talked about it a lot last podcast. Yeah, I just can't wait. There'll definitely be some drama.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly no shortage of egos in the Browns locker room,
Mm-hmm.
but they are a really good-looking team on paper,
Oof.
and as a Steelers fan, I'm certainly nervous.
You
They're
should
the
be.
favorites in the division. I know Aaron, my father, would disagree that they should be, but
He also
I
doesn't think
believe they
Derek
should
Jeter's
be.
a Hall of Famer, so we got to take that into account.
He has rescinded those comments.
Oh, has he?
Since 3 years ago.
All right, yeah, but the Browns will finally get to see Freddie Kitchens open practices.
Yeah, but no Bob Wiley, and that's really brutal.
Said what? All right, Kevin Love is appearing in more trade rumors. The Cavs should 100% trade him. We've talked about this before. He has no fit for the team. His salary has no fit for the team, and I just don't like him as a player. Sorry, Kevin.
Kevin Love. Jabba the Hutt, you fat slob. No, but $30 million a year is way too much for someone who can't stay on the court and isn't a leader. Kudos to Kevin for taking care of some of his mental health issues and other problems, because I know those can be very serious, but with this team of very young guys, it's important to have someone who can lead, and in order to lead, you need to be there.
Yeah, he just really doesn't have a fit. If we could trade him to a team like Portland, who could give us some young pieces like Nasir Little. I mean, I know they drafted him this year for a reason because they really like him. But if we could get some young pieces and lower our salary, which just got below the tax threshold, then it would be really big for the Cavs in rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I want to keep Kevin Love on this team is if he gains 50 pounds and shaves his head and we get vintage fat boy Kevin Love from Minnesota.
Yeah, that would be nice. What, 24 points, 12 rebounds?
12 boards,
yeah, exactly. That would be good. All right, we'll stop hating on Kevin for a second. Let's talk about the Buckeyes for a little bit. We haven't really talked about them on the podcast yet, but it's supposed to be about them. So earlier this week, we landed Lathan Ransom, a four-star safety, number 4 safety in the nation. Huge commitment for OSU as we have lacked depth in recruiting for our secondary lately. But with him and Lee Hunt, possibly Elias Ricks, and even Clark Phillips, Ohio State's really coming into their own with secondary recruiting. It's a huge win for the Buckeyes as he's our 21st commit with the number 3 ranked class in the nation. He pushed us up to 3 from 4. And it's just, yeah, he's awesome, and it really helps us, and it could help recruit someone like Elias Ricks from LSU. Another thing with Ohio State that I want to talk about is ESPN put out a little picture today.
Oh, yeah, I saw this on Twitter.
The best chance to win the Big Ten. Michigan is listed as a 48.3% to win. Penn State is 10.5. Michigan State is 8.7. And Ohio State is 8.2.
Is that because all of Harbaugh's recruits are finally going to get to play?
I mean, dude, he's been there for 5 years. He's had kids graduate that he's recruited. Michigan stays the national championship of the off season, but also will stay as the loser of the regular season. It's major shade at Ohio State. Literally, all we did was change our quarterback and head coach. And I know that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
You can't just say all we did.
But you saw what Ryan Day did last year when he started. Justin Fields was one of the best recruits ever. Yeah, he's a stud. He's an absolute stud. He has an arm, and he can run.
Elite 11 MVP.
And even if you're putting Michigan above us, how do you put Michigan State above us? Or Penn State above us? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Penn State without Trace McSorley, oof. They're
the running QB.
Yeah, they're going to fall off.
He should have been at wide receiver at the Combine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge college football fan. I'm not a Buckeyes fan either. So I don't have too much to say about this.
Yeah, but it's just major shade at Ohio State. Michigan is not good. They probably won't be for a while. Harbaugh just doesn't fit with their system and obviously doesn't know how to run it. But another huge recruiting win for the Buckeyes as we tout one of the best classes in the nation, which could even get better with players like Bijan Robinson. So, go Bucks. It was fun talking about you on the podcast for the first time.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you, Ethan, for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure having you.
No, thank you for having me very much. I'll extend my hand over the table for a firm handshake.
Thanks. Yep. And thank you for listening to our podcast again, guys. Here's Matt with an announcement.
Thank you guys if you made it this far listening to the Hottest Take Sports Podcast. You can find this on iTunes or on your favorite podcasting app. Today's intro beat was made by YZ on YouTube. We'll have a link to it in the description. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and stay updated with our weekly show. Also, make sure you rate the show and leave some feedback. Thanks again, and see you guys next time.